All right, everybody. John Burton here with you, the Furnace Podcast. How about a real quick one here? Here's the question. Should we allow the Holy Spirit to move in church, in the services? Well, of course, the answer is yes. Few people would argue that. So then the next question would be, what does that look like? What does it look like when the Holy Spirit moves in a service? There's a lot of people out there, they get frustrated and discouraged, upset because, by their own definition, the Holy Spirit is not allowed to move in the church. There's not freedom. Some people take it to an extreme, and they say that if they're not allowed to bring a song, bring a hymn, bring a word, whatever prophetic word, that if they're not allowed to do that in a service, then the church is out of order, and they end up leaving and starting their own little house church thing or whatever. So you got that whole group. You've got the issue of schedules. Should church services have a schedule of service? Should there be an order? I think that's more of a preference than anything else. I actually don't prefer too much of an order. I don't like things to be mapped out so precisely, but other people do. What about sermons? What about this? Think about this. Quite often we hear about pastors changing what they're going to speak in the moment, and we need to be open for the Holy Spirit to change our message. And there are people out there that get frustrated when the pastor doesn't seem to do that. Well, let me throw this question out there. A seasoned pastor many years ago kind of challenged that. He said, "Why is it that the Holy Spirit is limited to showing up or to influencing a message at the very last second? Why would that be? Is the Holy Spirit not able to show up a week ahead of time in the pastor's study as he's preparing his message there? Is that not possible? In fact, is it not even more probable as pastors are appropriately giving themselves to study and to prayer and everything else that comes that goes with preparing a message?" He said, and so here's the question: is it possible that we can become hyper spiritual and lazy by saying that the Holy Spirit took over a service and he changed the message? And here's my take on that. The Holy Spirit can do that. He does that with me. He does that quite often. But if I see a pattern of that, then I know there's something wrong. If I see a pattern in my own life where God is always changing what I'm preparing, that has got to bring into question, what in the world am I preparing? Where am I getting the inspiration for that message, for those messages? So that's an interesting topic of discussion. What about short services versus long services? I can't stand long services if God's not moving. Get us out of there and let us go eat, right? But also, if God is moving, the last thing we want to do is to shut it down. So there's nothing spiritual about a long service versus a short service. It's about what's happening. There's so many different things, style of worship and we could go on and on. But, what is it that you mean when you say that you want the Holy Spirit to be free to move in a service? What does that look like? What are some pain points there? What frustrates you when the Holy Spirit is quote unquote not allowed to move? What if the pastor always preaches what he prepares? Is that a problem? What about those that want to prophesy every single service and they've been called out, and they can no longer do that every service? What about that? What about order? What about order of service? So what do you think about all this? Again, be honest and admit that a lot of it is preference. It's just preference. Doesn't mean a church is good or bad. Doesn't mean any of that. Some of it goes beyond preference. Some of it is being sensitive to the Holy Spirit. It's true. But what do you think? Share some ideas with me. What frustrates you? What do you see in this? All right. Don't forget to go to Burton.tv. And you can listen to audio and watch video and read articles, and you can partner with the ministry there also. We appreciate all of our partners. Go to burton.tv. All right. See you next time.